Okay, well, welcome again this morning. This is Tuesday morning here at the Texas State Republican Convention. The temporary committees are about to begin their work. That will begin at 9 a.m. this morning, and there's several committees, temporary committees, that will be working today. Yesterday, the committees, as I talked about in a quick update, I talked about the Constitution Committee, how they had essentially abandoned the right of a lot of delegates because they didn't want to extend the time to ensure that all delegates got the chance to speak. There were several delegates who wanted to testify at that committee, and it's up to every committee chair and committee to decide whether or not they want to hear additional testimony. That committee did not. They wanted to go home early. They weren't here to work. They were here to basically push an agenda, in my opinion. And that opinion is shared by many delegates here. So what's going to happen with that is it's going to go to the committee of the whole. So the temporary subcommittee is basically making their recommendations. They're taking out Plank 37, which is Article 5, Constitution of the States, to have Convention of the States. I said Constitution of the State, Convention of the State, and it is a little confusing because, first of all, there is no platform that the Republican Party has when we hit convention, because the idea is that the platform is rewritten from scratch. However, in reality, the current platform is basically the template, and they use that. And so when I say they take out Plank 37, basically what I mean by that is that they're not going to include Plank 37. Now, Plank 37 got added to the Republican platform through a minority report. So several stages, just like 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 2 years ago, excuse me. Just like 2 years ago, there were many who tried to keep that issue off of the platform, and so it went to the committee of the whole. The committee turned it down. Then it went to basically the floor as a minority report, and the floor, the delegates chose to approve it and voted on it. The issue here is not necessarily, in my opinion, whether or not you agree with having a constitutional convention of the states. The issue is whether or not delegates should have the right to vote on whether or not they want a convention of the states. That's the issue. So, as I talked about yesterday fairly shortly, an abbreviated version was essentially a member of the committee talked about how they saw this as a divisive issue, that it was not something that he wanted to see on the platform because it was a divisive issue. There's a lot of divisive issues. The issue of abortion and pro-life is a divisive issue. And yet we hold to a position, and it basically cuts the wheat from the chaff, if you will. Do we believe and do we affirm the Constitution, or do we not? And there are people who literally say, I don't want to, I believe in the Constitution, but not that portion. So they pick and choose which portions of the Constitution they wish to follow. It's very similar. It's human nature, in my opinion. Christians do it, in my opinion, all the time, where they pick portions of the Bible that they don't like, and so they just ignore that. They say that isn't something that I want to trust in God on. They want to trust on them in themselves, and so that's ultimately what is happening here at the platform committee on Constitution. So yesterday there was Criminal and Civil Justice Committee met, Health and Human Services, Defense and Foreign Affairs, and Defense and Foreign Affairs went late last night. And there's a lot of good things. And I think what National Defense and Foreign Affairs is trying to do is they're trying to basically make the wording a lot of that a little easier to understand, more clear. They're trying to create more clear language in the platform, which I don't see as a bad thing. But I haven't necessarily, I'm still waiting to see what they come up with. So right now, as we speak, the editors are at work working to the editorial staff is working to solidify that. So we'll get a fresh look at that hopefully sometime this morning. Today, there's going to be 4 other committees that will be meeting: State Affairs, Government and Election Integrity, Education, and Business, Commerce, and Transportation. Now, if you happen to be in San Antonio or you're close to here, if you're interested in testifying, then I would recommend you do so. Unfortunately, last year I thought they did an amazing job. 2 years ago, they did an amazing job of basically broadcasting every subcommittee's work. And that was important because it brought about transparency. But more importantly, it helped people understand and see how the sausage is made, if you will. This year, they're not doing that. So unfortunately, we've not been able to set up like we typically do for a convention. So I'm basically bound to one camera, and so I can't float like and I can't broadcast different committees like I did 2 years ago. But I will be going in and out of different committee rooms. I will be testifying on some of these platform issues. So today from 10:30 to noon, as I was saying, if you're in the San Antonio area, you want to testify, from 10:30 to noon is education. Understand that each one of these committees, and I think education really should be one of those committees that extends testimony time. They're supposed to be here, work till 11. So in my opinion, those who are on education committee should extend that time for as long as there are people who want to give testimony. That's how important the education issue is. In our state platform, it's one of the biggest platform planks, and there's a lot to be said for it. And so I hope that the committee will be sensitive and will be open to hearing testimony from delegates and what they have to say about education. There'll be a lunch break from noon to about 1, and then 1 to 3 is Government and Election Integrity, is when public testimony begins on that. Then from 2 to 3:30 is Business, Commerce, and Transportation, and finally from 3 to 5 is State Affairs. Now, I will say that each member of the platform committee is on multiple committees. It is my understanding, I could be wrong on this, but it's my understanding that that typically they're on 2 committees, and so the 4 committees that met yesterday, a member sits on one of those committees, and then the second committee is the committee that they sit on today, so that they don't have to jump from committee to committee, which means public testimony should be open. So I am a little confused as to why they are limiting the public testimony to just basically an hour and a half. It doesn't make a lot of sense from someone who is a platform junkie like myself. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Why wouldn't we want to debate it? Why wouldn't we want to talk about these things? Why wouldn't we want to hear more testimony? But that's just not happening, and so it's a little disconcerting. I'll just put it that way. There is a dinner break, and then at 7:30 to 9, the Committee of the Whole will meet, and they're going to have resolutions, if any, on that. Wednesday, tomorrow, is basically when the Committee of the Whole basically considers the subcommittee's work and debates them, and public testimony comes in tomorrow from 4:15 to 5:30, and then from 6:30 to 7:30. And then on Thursday there will be public testimony from 6:15 to 7 p.m. So again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would limit testimony on these days, on Monday and Tuesday, when there's all the time in the world and there's a lot of people who want to speak on different issues, and a lot of delegates are going from committee to committee, and they want to speak to those things. The Legislative Priorities Committee is meeting also today, and that is a committee I'll be testifying in as well. I have a legislative priority that I'll be focused on basically municipal utility districts. These are basically entities that are out of control, and I'm specifically focusing a legislative priority on the water district, on establishing and creating the water district, which basically and my legislative priority basically reads that in addition to those who have lived inside a proposed water district for the statutorily required minimum 6 months prior to an election to approve. What that means is if you want to create a MUD, you first have to create a water district. To create that water district, you basically have to have a vote of everyone, an election of everyone who lives in that proposed water district, and everyone who lives there gets to vote. So this is how developers basically set up a trailer. They find someone to put on that property, to live there, I believe, for 6 months. And then once they've lived there and established residence on that property for 6 months, they're basically playing with the law. They're playing with the spirit of the law. And while it is technically legal, it is just basically underhanded. The law also says you cannot put someone on a piece of property for that purpose. So while technically you can, the statute also says you can't, but they do it anyway. And so what I am proposing is that the Texas legislature should amend the standard for approval of a water district, which is a precursor to a municipal utility district, or MUD, to include any registered voter that has resided on a property within 1,000 feet from the proposed property line for at least the same amount of time. That gives those surrounding property owners the right to speak to that proposed water district. You know, developers in MUDs, they love to talk about how they're creating communities and what a great thing it is. Well, if it is that great, then those property owners who live alongside it should be as excited about it as they are. There should be many benefits to those property owners. But there's not, and that's why this is going to get a lot of pushback from developers, and why developers don't want to see this happen. What will end up happening, should this legislation move forward, what will end up happening, I predict, I don't know, but I predict, these developers will try to purchase the properties around their development, number one. That'll be their first effort. Number two, or they will make deals with those property owners. They'll do things for those property owners that basically make it a windfall for the property owners as well, that improve their property somehow. You know, and that shouldn't be illegal. If you want to work with a property owner to help them improve their property, okay. So at the very least, you have to get the buy-in from those property owners that are around there. There is no perfect solution to this. I mean, it would be great if developers had integrity, but they don't. It doesn't matter if they are people of faith. They don't care when it comes to developing. They don't let faith in anything get in their way of basically making money. So that's the legislative priority that I'll be proposing to the Legislative Priority Committee. It did pass our in our caucus, or our county convention, and so it is in front of the platform committees, but it is not in front of the Legislative Priorities Committee. So I'll be speaking to both platform committee and Legislative Priority Committee. The Legislative Priority Committee has done a great job to create a way to basically apply to speak. The platform committee have not created some kind of a way to do that. It's much less formal, and it's much more difficult to get on the agenda to testify before all of the committees. You have to kind of go there. You have to sign up, and when you're trying to sign up for multiple committees, it makes it very, very difficult. In fact, I was at several committees yesterday where the person who had asked to speak was not present because they were in another committee room testifying for something else. I can say that even the Constitution Committee that I'm very critical of, even they did try to go back and look for those people who were absent to make sure that they had the opportunity to testify. So that's a good thing as well. So that is kind of what we're kind of is going to be seeing this morning. I hope that's a good update for you. I'll be giving you more updates. I'm going to do an evening wrap up, and if I can, I will try and do some more just spotty, hits where I come in and just kind of give you a quick update as the day rolls along. So hope it's been helpful for you. I appreciate the fact that you're tuning in, and miss you. Wish you were here at the convention. It is a fun thing. So I look forward to seeing you next time I'm on. So blessings to you all.